All right, good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, June 23rd, 2025. I've got a little after 7 o'clock here, so we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. Quick change in the order of our items this evening. We will start first with item C, and then we will resume back with our presentations. Could have been a second change here, but nobody wanted to take me up on my idea to move the meeting outside into the warm air, so we'll stay inside. That's fine. So we will get started first with returning for further discussion, items from the Department of Economic Development.
All right, I'm up.
Wherever you prefer to be.
You think you think better outside when it's hot out, Trent?
Sure.
Absolutely. I don't know, I get hazy. It's no good. All right, so we are here this evening to talk about the KBC Velocis project, which is a speculative industrial building on Tech Center, or no, not on Tech Center, but what we want to talk about tonight, I know Jeff went through this with you a couple weeks ago. He is on vacation, so he's not here this evening, so you get me instead. Whether that's good or bad, you get me. I really just wanted to go through some of the highlights, things that you've already heard, and then I'd like to we have a couple members from the development team here to talk really, through the project, kind of through, the need for the tax abatement we're going to talk about. So, as you know, this project is, it'll be about 141,000 square feet. The hard cost construction is about $13.5 million. The job creation that has been estimated for the project is 37 new jobs. That is, because this is a speculative industrial building, those are estimated jobs. This is not, they don't have an end user in place right now, but what we've gotten them to agree to is that 37 will be the minimum. So if anything above that, we're obviously going to get the income tax from. If they don't meet 37, in order to keep the tax abatement in place, they'd have to come back and make a payment to the city that's equal to the lost revenue between 37 and whatever the number is. So that is really the overall of the project. This site, and they'll talk about it as well. This site has been vacant. It has not had anything on it for a really long time. So I think there's a huge need for this. I will just say, you've all seen the return on investment calculator. I think it's important just to really know what the return on investment is to the community, what the return on investment is to the city. Our return, as we look at all the numbers that go into it, the income taxes, the property taxes, all those kind of things. As you know, we're requesting 80% 12-year tax abatement. With all of that, our return on investment with jobs and with taxes is still a 69% return on investment back to the community. The return on investment back to the city would actually be the dollars we give up, the money that the city would have to abate from its inside millage is about $300,000, and we get twice that, about $600,000 back in income tax over the time. So we're doubling just the ROI for the city itself. I think it's also worth noting, and I know Jeff talked about it, I know the KBC team talked about it last time, just the need for spec industrial in the market. We have had, I think you're all aware, we have had spec industrial in Gahanna before. They've been great successes. We also, unfortunately, because we haven't had buildings of this size, we've lost out on about 22 different leads from One Columbus and Jobs Ohio over the past 2 years by not having the space available. Jobs Ohio and One Columbus, they get leads from companies, manufacturers, logistics firms, whatever they may be. They get leads, and a lot of times they're looking for industrial space, and we haven't been able to respond to it because we didn't have a space like this. It used to be, when I started in economic development, which was a long time ago, 25 years ago, everybody wanted land because they had time to build on land. They had time to go through all the process to build buildings and do those kind of things. Companies today really want speed to market, and they want buildings that are there, so when they come in, they can say, okay, that building's up, it meets my needs, and I can move in quickly. So the need for spec is huge. The need for spec industrial in the market is even greater today than it has been really for the last 2 or 3 years. So we're at a low point in the market, and I know you heard that last time we were here. I think you all know too that we really need, we have a diversity of jobs, and I think we need to continue to have that, and this building will hopefully continue that and bring diversity of jobs to the city. One of the things that I did want to mention that we talked about last time, there was in the legislation, there was an emergency clause based on the timing of the land. KBC worked with the land seller, and we've been able to work it out so we don't need that emergency clause anymore. So that is something that we worked out, and that I think is a good thing to what you all requested last time. With that, I will open it up for questions, but certainly since they're here, some of them are from out of town. I just wanted some of the gentlemen to come up, particularly Jonathan Postweiler. He's from KBC. He's out of Chicago. He was on his honeymoon up until yesterday, and he came back. He flew in today. So I thought it would be good for him to come up, introduce himself, and maybe answer any of your questions. I don't know, Jonathan, I know Bo was here last time, but if you want to come and just talk more about the company, and you can tell us about your great, honeymoon in Europe if you want, but I think that'd be great just to.
Good evening, and congratulations, and thanks for ending your honeymoon here in beautiful Gahanna. So.
Glad to start my married working career here in Gahanna. Fortunately enough for the technology you guys have, I was able to watch the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I did get a good understanding of kind of where your questions were. So a little bit of background about myself. As Nate said, I'm with KBC Advisors out of Chicago. My name is Jonathan Postweiler. I've been with KBC for 4 years, focused entirely on industrial development for KBC Advisors. This joint venture is between KBC and Velocis, our private equity, who's out of Dallas, and our local leasing broker is Bo Taggart, who spoke on the June 9th meeting, who is local here to Columbus. The development team itself sits in Chicago, but our resources here locally and our capital nationally are coming together for the project here in Gahanna. A few of the other things that kind of popped up that stood out to me a few weeks ago, question-wise, were one about the organizational structure, how the relationship works together. This partnership team has developed over 4.5 million feet in Texas, 3 different cities there, in Arizona, as well as in Chicago. We're now expanding in the Midwest here to Gahanna. This partnership is one that's been successful in the past, and we look forward to continuing this success in Ohio and other different Midwestern states, as well as East Coast and West Coast. One of the other questions that came up was really more site-specific and why we need this and what's unique about this site. And a few challenges that arose throughout our process of getting this site planned that really constrained what we could build on the site. One of which is the storm sanitary easement that bisects the site east to west. It's in the northern third of the site, but it took what was a 10-acre site of usable land down to roughly 8.3 acres. We lost about 1.7 acres of usable dirt. Additionally, the topography is visible, it's known, but there's some additional fill material from when Tech Center Drive that was constructed that was stored on the site. That's additional cost to us as the developer. And there's an ephemeral stream that does drain through the site from stormwater discharge in neighboring properties that we need to address, reroute, and repipe. The walking trail easement that's on the south side and east side of the property pinches us in the east-west manner. The sanitary easement pinched us in the north-south manner. And it really creates a very tough site constraint for the development of this building. So there's additional costs that we're incurring here that we're able to take on for this project so long as we have this tax abatement. And as Jeff had alluded to in the June 9th meeting as well, the need for the tax abatement it allows us to be competitive in the marketplace. As you know, this is a speculative development. We do not have the tenant identified. We're building essentially a Swiss Army knife of a facility here to accommodate various different industrial users, manufacturers, warehouse work, flex office space, et cetera, in various sizes. And with that, we need to be able to lease the property for competitive market rents. And Bo Taggart, our local broker, had provided us between 20 and 30 recent lease comparables that point to where market rents need to be. And to achieve those rents, we need relief from the property taxes. So that's what drove the need, as Jeff mentioned, to this 12-year 80% abatement for the project to commence, and for a successful partnership here in Gahanna. With that, I'll just open it up to any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us this evening, and congratulations again. I think at this time I might just open things up altogether, and I know Ms. Bowers had mentioned to me she'd like to begin. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the presentation this evening, and certainly the work that's gone into this. Thank you for the additional context, Mr. Green and Mr. Posweiler. So I guess I wanted to make sure that we level set a little bit. There were some remarks made at our last regular council meeting, and I want to be clear that that there's a lot of mutual respect for our development team, mutual respect for people with professional experience in these areas, and that doesn't negate the work of council to vet and review thoroughly the projects. And I think one of the things that is important as well is that each of us brings lived experience, research experience, educational experience to our roles as well. And so while I think it's very important that we appreciate the contributions of various partners, other companies, property owners, et cetera, that I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that the questions are intended to vet this on behalf of our community and from a holistic perspective. So thank you for allowing me to share those thoughts. I did have, I guess, just a couple questions, and I'm not sure if they're better suited maybe to Mr. Green. But one of the questions that I had, just to make sure that we're all clear, so there's been some comments about this property being on the market for an extensive period of time, but there were two major things that I've heard that have changed in recent years. One of those major changes is the rezoning, and one of the other major change was a lot split. Mm-hmm. And the lot split occurred in 2019 or so?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So. 2019 or 2018?
2022.
2022?
2022, so the lot split.
There we go. See, he should have answered that
Excellent,
question.
thank you.
Yep.
I just need a clarification on like when the lot split happened. That's all I'm asking.
That's okay. I mean, it was in 2022. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Jordan Fromm. The lot split, actually, there were two parcels. There was never a lot split. The lot line moved for Burns and Scalo because they acquired less land than the parcel that they intended to purchase. So there was never a lot split. You had two different parcels. There were lot splits on the east side that were carved out to create ADB Safegate for them to have the retention. But they were always two separate parcels. However, they were marketed together. And that began when we came in to acquire the sites and build Tech Center Drive, and we in the city walked together to try to get Bob Evans.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because I think Mr. Griffith said during his remarks last time that they split this 18-acre piece of ground. And so that's what's enabled the development in recent time.
Correct.
So I just wanted to make sure I had a good understanding of that. Sure. And I guess the other question I had, since we've identified obviously the development team, the prospective development team is from out of town.
Correct.
So how did they identify this site? How did they decide that this was a project that they wanted to pursue?
Yeah. I'll just stand up here.
That's a good question, and thank you for asking. Macroeconomically speaking, being based in Chicago, it's one of the largest logistical markets in the country, second largest actually. And we spend a lot of our time and effort there in Chicago, but being that Columbus is proximate to our office, we wanted to identify other markets that were ripe for development that fell under our expertise. Columbus was one of those markets based on the economic indicators, vacancy, absorption, tenant demand, that we started to dig into in 2021 and 2022. There is and was an oversupply of bulk product in Columbus, particularly down in the Rickenbacker market, which scared a lot of capital from coming into the Columbus market of late. And this subsector of size in the 100 to 150,000 foot warehouse size has been in demand from tenants. We saw the 10 most recent developments in this submarket, the Northeast submarket, leased up with an average lease-up time of just under 2 quarters. It was like 5.1 months, which indicated to us that there's strong demand for this product type in this location. That, coupled with the leasing demand and lease comparables that Bo Taggart has provided our team, signified the tenant demand for this immediate area in our desired size range. And then Bo and team found the site that Bob Lockett was marketing on behalf of VRG and brought it to us. That's what got us here.
So a couple of questions on, what's the typical duration of a lease that you see for these types of industrial tenants?
Typical duration would be between 7 and 10 years.
With options to renew?
Yeah, most of them have 2 5-year options to extend.
And are you seeing companies like that exercise those options?
Most often, yes.
What happens when the abatement expires? So, and their rent just jumps up dramatically.
So it's a good question, and it's a problem in the Columbus market in that if you have a Class B, let's call it, building that was built in 2002, it's got maybe 28 clear and 1,000 amps of power, it's functional for warehousing space. That building may have a $3.50 per square foot cost to the tenant for the property taxes. The tenant really cares about what's called their gross rent, which is their all-in rent payment. So what the landlord needs to do when the abatement expires is lower their base rent portion so that, let's say if the tenant wants to pay $10 gross and that's market, the landlord can only charge $7 for the base rent because $3 is going towards taxes. So in the real world and in our exact case study, that gross rent number is $11. We are underwriting upper $9 a foot, which leaves us just over $1 in operating expense cushion for the entire property. That includes CAM, insurance, et cetera. If we don't have this abatement, we would need to lower our rents from the $9.75-ish mark down to $7.75, and then we no longer achieve the returns required by our capital partners and the market to build this product. So without the tax abatement in place, it's not feasible for the developer or for any developer.
I might have,
You want to know what happens to those companies who leave.
I knew I was getting there. Thank you for reminding me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what ends up happening is the company that's in that old building is looking at it and saying, well, for $11 a foot, I can stay where I am. Or for $11 a foot, I can go to this new higher quality, better product. What ends up happening is those companies move to the newer quality product, and the older buildings are backfilled for lower rent by a company that's paying less rent.
so would that be KCB and Velocis at that point in time?
In terms of ownership structure, are you asking if KBC and Velocis would own the property when the tax abatement expires?
Right.
Most likely, KBC and Velocis will not be the owners when the tax abatement expires.
So who's going to, I guess, rent at that lower rate and absorb the tax increase at that time?
So just as a clarification, we will be the developer on the project and we will be the project owner. We will lease this out to between 1 and 3 unidentified tenants who will pay us rent. Those tenants will have rollover in their leasing schedules. Let's say one tenant leases it for 7, one 10, and one 12 years. At various times, different parts of the building may become vacant. Bo Taggart, who is our local broker, will be responsible for releasing that space to a new tenant on our behalf. Regardless of whether we own the building or some other institutional ownership owns that property, the same process will happen to our building as every other building in the market, and that is if the tenant does vacate, comes on the market for lease, you have a listing broker, a tenant rep broker brings the tenant through, you make a deal, and now they move into the space.
I appreciated the historical context and the relationship between KCB and Velocis. In the projects that you've done with them, and you said it's been about a 4.5-year relationship that you've had with them.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you own all of the properties today that you started with, entered into a project development with, into a development project with?
I don't know the exact answer to this question. I'd say yes, all but 2 or 3 properties. And we have a 14 or 15 building history with them.
And what's approximately the time in which you would expect to sell this property?
It's very market specific and it's very economic specific. So of late, with the interest rate increases, it's not as advantageous for our partnership to sell. So let's say if interest rates fell, cap rates were lowered, the values of buildings went up, the partnership would look to exit more properties at that time. But in the meantime, we are holding, owning, and operating the properties, leasing them to tenants.
The other potential that could happen, and I think, Jonathan, you can talk about it. The other potential that could happen is that they get one tenant in the building and that tenant buys the building. That's another possibility. Or they get one tenant that comes in 3 to 5 years and buys the building. And that's somebody they own the building, they're an end user. That's also a possibility. I mean, that is, because the market is, as Jonathan talked about, it's kind of a fluid market. Right now, there are not a lot of these spaces out there. There are a lot of companies that are in need of this space. So that could happen where there's 3 tenants and the rent, as their lease goes up, somebody else comes in. Or it could happen that one user comes in and they buy the whole space and they're there for the duration. I mean, our hope would be that that's what happens. I mean, the ultimate hope.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
our
absolutely. I think that, if you look at from any economic development perspective, that's what you want. We want companies, we want one of 2 things to happen. We want companies that are here that need more space to grow into that space and then continue to grow and stay here forever, right? Or we want companies that are somewhere else in the marketplace. We want them to move in and grow into the space and continue to grow here. It'd be great too if we had 3 companies in there and they each grow so much that they need bigger spaces in Gahanna and they stay in the community and we backfill those spaces with other companies. That's the goal. That's the reason that we, in economic development, that's why we do that.
Yeah, and I think that's great, and I certainly hear you on that, right?
Yeah.
Like that, we heard some great success stories actually last week too,
Yep.
like ADB Safegate and some other types of companies in the industrial district. I think though that it's, right, there's this gamble though, because the other alternative is that they vacate the space when the abatement expires, people go to newer projects, pay less rent, and then we have a warehouse that's out of step.
Yeah, I think if you look at, that could happen. I can't deny that it could happen. But if you look at Rickenbacker has gone through so many iterations of tax abatements rolling off and other entities buying them. The vacancy rate at Rickenbacker is very low. And so that is, and those are, many of those are bulk warehouses. We're also in a very, we're lucky we're in Columbus. And so we have a lot of economic activity. So the fact that we have this building and we're going to have this building is a good thing for Gahanna. It also, I mean, you all know this. Our location is incredible. We're on 270. We're right near the airport. We're on 670. One of the other reasons that they want to build is because we're right in the middle of the workforce. I mean, we have so much workforce here and within 5 miles that companies that want to locate here don't have to look very far. So, we have a lot of advantages to that.
I think one,
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir.
No,
I think
I
that's the
I know.
concern, right?
It is, and certainly, but the challenge, and you all know this, and John said it, the challenge we have is that from a financial perspective, the tax abatement is a big deal because all of our communities we're competing with have this same, they are offering this. Columbus, the city of Columbus, our neighbor, does the very similar abatement. Down south of here, it's even greater. They do 100% 15 years all the time. So at least we're not doing 100%. But that's the market. We have high property taxes in Ohio, and this is the way to attract new capital.
if I may, just to add to what Nate's saying, and as a risk mitigant to what you pose, what we are proposing here, this facility, is essentially the Swiss Army knife of industrial facilities. We have the ability to knock out more dock positions. We have trailer parking. We have well in excess of power for a building of this size. We have the clear height for the racking. We have the floor thickness for the manufacturing, and we have the office entrances for 5,000 square, 15,000 feet, 30,000 feet if you stack 2 stories. I mean, we could accommodate this building to fit almost any type of user because it's speculative in nature. In a build-to-suit or a corporate headquarters type facility that you're referencing, if a corporate headquarters came in and built a highly specialized facility and was there for 10 years and chose to leave, that is a facility that is not easily releasable. This facility is. So that downside risk of, are we going to be left with a building with nobody in it? The building is designed to accommodate almost every use in the industrial sector.
It's a
in Columbus.
high-tech industrial facility. I mean, that's really the way I think they'll look at it. Because they're coming in and they're building it, you know, they're a Class A industrial developer, which is what we want.
Switching gears a little bit, and I think, Mr. Green, you were sort of headed down this path in terms of, this is sort of what we're used to, property taxes are high in Ohio, and this is just kind of the way that we have to do business. So one of the concerns that I have is with a practice called drop and swap. So my understanding, and I was hoping Mr. Underhill was going to be here because I'm sure oh, nice to see you. I'm sure you're familiar with that phrase.
Yes.
So my concern is that because that's such a common practice in terms of,
Can you clarify the?
Yeah, drop and swap.
I know the
Can you,
Sure.
yeah.
yeah,
If you could clarify, just so I.
and you might be able to do a better job because,
So a drop and swap is a situation where the property immediately prior to the sale to your group would be placed into an LLC that's a single purpose entity, but then that LLC is purchased, and it's a way to sort of not have the transaction hit the books at the county. I think, Ms. Bowers, where you're going with it is there is an element of land value that doesn't get abated, so if the transaction hits the books, then the city and others realize the increase in value from the transaction.
right, so the unabated land value wouldn't even be recognized because the membership interest in the LLC.
No, that's not what they're doing. I
Yeah,
mean,
so-
that base value, you know, whatever that value is that isn't abated will be on, because
The entity that will own the property and develops the property is the one that's buying.
it already exists.
Yeah, Colossus, Gahanna, JVs.
Yes.
So we can say definitively for the record that will not happen here, so that increase in value. And inevitably, when there's a sale, we have to report on what's called a DT form, I forget which one, 24? That you have to report the value of the sale so they can calculate conveyance fees to the county. And then that will also, you know, the county auditor is going to take that as gospel in terms of the market value, and we will reset that value. So everybody that has been receiving the tax payments and the benefit of taxes to date will get what they were getting and then some from the transaction itself.
Correct.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that. I do appreciate it. And thank you for also clarifying that that practice would not occur on this parcel. On that note, Mr. Underhill, there were some questions that came up 2 weeks ago regarding an entity that would be liable for this income tax guarantee. Would you be able to speak to that with a little bit more clarity?
Well, we'll be the ownership entity. I would say that we negotiated the language on assignments in the agreement very particularly, number one, because if my client's entity were to sell, there's a benefit to the buyer to have this abatement in place. But I think what that also does is it makes any future buyer of this site obligated to the city to fulfill the obligations under that agreement. So the city will always have a breach of contract claim if that other buyer or that other owner of the property would not pay. There would be a contractual claim against them.
Correct. It's always the entity that owns the building that would have that liability.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that covers my questions tonight.
Wonderful, thank you, Ms. Bowers. I know there was a follow-up request from Mr. Schnetzer. Did you have anything further?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just add that what I had requested was sent, I believe, to all of us and is now included in the attachment. It's the it's the file titled Incentive ROI Calculator, KBC, dated 6/17/2025. It includes the ask that I had from our last meeting or last discussion on this project of stripping out, or I guess showing the revenue to the city as opposed to lumping that in with what was being shared with us as revenue to the community. I see that figure as $619,777 on the spreadsheet.
Yep.
I guess while I have the floor, I'll just ask, that's comprised of obviously income tax as well as TIF payments. What's the risk that that number does not materialize?
We have, as part of the agreement, they have guaranteed that they are going to have at least that minimum amount of income tax. So there's very little risk because whoever owns the building is going to at least have to make that up if they don't have, 37 people in the building with that payroll.
I suppose, and, we don't know what the economy is going to do, right?
Sure.
So if the jobs don't materialize, are they effectively on the hook, or is there a rollback of the abatement?
No, they're on the hook for that if they
Okay.
don't. If they don't.
How about the TIF payments?
The TIF payments?
Yeah, there's.
So whatever property taxes would be paid, they're also on the hook for that.
Mr. Schnetzer, if I
Yeah,
may.
sure, please.
The TIF is a bit confusing on our side because I want to be clear that this client and this property owner is not asking for any TIF dollars.
Right.
Whether the city elects to TIF on top of the abatement, so to speak, that's
Yeah.
obviously their business, but I want to be clear that we're not asking for any revenues to come back to us.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm just referencing, I'm just going off of the spreadsheet and literally what the cell on the spreadsheet is titled.
Those service payments, Mr. Snetcher, as to your question, they would be, those are payments that they would have to make as part of their property tax bill, and whoever owns the bill would have to pay those.
Okay, so that's 617,777 is a minimum figure, and we're reasonably assured that it'll materialize.
That we at least get that, right?
All right.
We hope that we get more than that, obviously.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you so much. That's it for me, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schnetzer. Mr. Renner?
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion so far, and I understand, and I hear, Nate, you say, and I've heard others say, that this is a high-tech facility. And I like the use of the word, it's a Swiss Army knife, facility. But you have already said, and even speakers before have said that no tenants have been identified yet. So that really concerns me at an 80% abatement request. So could you give me a flavor of understanding what is a high-tech, a facility? What types of communities or what types of facilities or businesses that you're going to go after? I know that there's a lot of secretive stuff, on the side, you're wheeling and dealing. I get that, and I don't want you to tip your hand. But I do want you to help me understand what's going in there.
Great question, and thank you for asking. First, I'd like to address kind of the first half of your question. And we haven't identified a tenant yet because we haven't fully launched the marketing campaign. It's been softly marketed by our broker to a few different groups who may be interested, but we haven't launched a broad e-blast tenant outreach campaign for the property yet because we haven't closed on the land. We're not sure whether or not it's proceeding, and the development of this project does hinge on some of these approvals that stand before us. So the marketing piece of it isn't in full effect yet. And as Nate alluded to earlier, industry standards right now are between 6 and 9 months out. A tenant will start to look for a new space if they're growing. And this is a project that we first put under contract in September of 2024, and we still haven't got a shovel in the ground. So it's a very lengthy process to get the building built, and it's a much shorter time frame for a tenant to decide they want more space, find the space, and move into it. And that's really what's driven the speculative nature of this development. As it relates to what is a high-tech facility, modern industrial facilities are 32 clear and above. That's the floor to bottom of the joist girders deck measurement inside the facility, which allows them to rack up to 8 pallet positions up. They can rack the entire building. It's modern LED lighting. It is ESFR fire suppression, which allows you to store materials in the facility that otherwise wouldn't be allowed in some of the older facilities with lower tech fire suppression systems. This particular facility is designed for 3,000 amps of power into the building, 3,500 to the site. We will have 6 EV charging stations on site as well. We can get additional power to the facility for any high-tech advanced manufacturing uses, which is one of your questions, and who might land here. I think our biggest competition is the New Albany submarket. A lot of the new developments and economic investments up there are surrounding the chip manufacturing plant. And our investment thesis here, as Nate mentioned, obviously we've got great highway access, we've got great labor, we have a great community, but we are also really close to the airport, we're close to downtown Columbus, and we're kind of the bridge between the two. We view this building as a perfect fit for a group that's supplementing the technology boom that's going on in New Albany. We think our direct competition is New Albany buildings, and we view a high-tech user as somebody who is doing advanced manufacturing within the facility. So that would be a combination of, some assembly, some manufacturing equipment, some racking, and we provide them the dock positions needed for the trucks. We have a few different trailer parking stalls, and we have over 110 auto parking stalls for employees there. And I know it's been mentioned in the past, we are committing to the 37 jobs, but obviously our goal is to land that single tenant advanced manufacturing user that's got 100+ jobs, bringing that to the community. And I think that would be a real win for everybody.
And Mr. Renner, I've mentioned that we've missed out on some Jobs Ohio leads because we haven't had this space. Those companies have been in a few different sectors: pharmaceutical manufacturing, food processing, advanced automotive and aerospace manufacturing, freezer cooler manufacturing. So those are all advanced, kind of advanced higher tech manufacturing sectors. And I think we could see some of those leads going in this space.
Okay.
Mr. Renner, no secret, I've been involved in a lot of what's been going on in New Albany, for better or worse, however you look at it. But I think the size of this project, and there's been a lot of questions about the speculative nature of it, but if you think of the types of businesses that are going into this size of facility, they are not your larger businesses, but they're successful, more small and medium-sized businesses. And when you get a company like that who isn't going out and getting into sophisticated real estate development deals all the time, like the Amazons and Googles of the world, they want to mitigate their risk, and they want to have something that's ready, and so they can concentrate on their core business. And so I think that's the opportunity that's before you all here, is to capture those sorts of folks who are going to have a more immediate need and don't have the long planning horizon or the expertise in their day-to-day operations to go ahead and try to go build something themselves. So I think this is a real niche that, as Jonathan pointed out, I think will service not only Gahanna, but what's going on to the north of you.
Well, so I have a long established history of being very pro development. And I understand the needs, I understand your side of the equation. When I look at this area, I'm sort of like, well, because we've been really pushing a lot of pressure to build up that area, right? And so in your minds, you're, and I'm not discrediting it by saying that, but I said that you're finding a very small acreage and you're developing in a very creative way. So in that vein, what about, excuse me, I heard you mention about adding more pipes for drainage and all that kind of stuff. Are you, have you had any established history about not doing it that way, but actually management of stormwater and what have you, not going in a pipe, but actually going straight down, and any, space, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you know the direction that actually I'm looking for.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and let me start by saying I'm not a civil engineer. Unfortunately, they're not with us, but I'm knowledgeable enough to at least answer the question here. So when I mentioned that storm drainage as an additional site cost, what's happening is, and if you look on an aerial, you can see, there's been stormwater discharge from the neighboring properties that goes through our property, starting in the exact middle of it and kind of running northwest down to the creek for the better part of the last 40+ years. That drainage has created a little bit of a ditch. It is driven by what started to be and what we believe to be a failed drain tile from the 50s. But for us to construct that building, our proposed building where we have it shown on the site, we need to repipe the overflow drainage from the neighboring properties west along the north side of Tech Center, and then north along our west property line and down into the creek, or into the conservation easement. That is strictly just handling the off-site stormwater discharge that's running through our site. For all of the rainwater that falls on our site, we need to contain that and release it in a safe manner per engineering code down into that creek as well. So we do have on-site detention ponds designed as part of our site plan as well. But they're just kind of addressing two separate things. One is handling water that was going through our site already, and one is containing the water that's falling on our site and releasing them both in an appropriate manner per engineering code.
And, yeah, it does, somewhat. But using your compass then on that, when you're looking at businesses, what's becoming more and more apparent is that we need to be addressing some of the energy concerns. We need to be addressing some of the transportation-related concerns. And so how is your facility going to be able to do that?
So it's also a great question. We know there's public transportation very close to the site, which is one huge benefit. Another benefit to the employees and the public around there is that walking path. In terms of energy efficiency, these facilities all have LED lights. We are currently pursuing and at least looking into the LEED certifications on the facility. A lot of that is going to depend on the financial feasibility of the project, because there's some additional cost in doing that. But there's high efficiency HVAC units on the rooftops of these modern industrial facilities as well. So in terms of energy efficiency, we're meeting kind of all the modern codes and the modern standards demanded by tenants nationally here.
Okay. But then by extension, what about solar? What about battery power? What about, all those types of things that are
Definitely.
becoming increasingly performative?
One of the beauties of this product type is, as I mentioned before, it is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. So to give you a case study at a building that we actually represented the owner of in Chicago, they were looking into rainwater recapture and solar panels, and those could be, this building was from the 70s. They were looking at retrofitting those and putting those on the building after the fact. It's not something that necessarily has to be addressed for us today or even during the construction process. There are some tenants who are averse to solar panels being on the facility because the roof penetrations and any potential water leaks, depending on, say, a chip manufacturer is in there. Depending on the product type, it gets a little dicey with some tenants, but those are all options for the facility that we will consider, so long as that financial equation makes sense for us.
As a building owner, you could also look at a PPP and be able to say that I'm going to buy only renewable power.
Potentially, yes.
Is that something that you would be interested?
That's not something I know enough to speak on
Okay,
at this
fair
time,
enough.
so my apologies.
Mr. Renner, I think Ms. Bowers had a follow-up to one of your questions, if
Oh,
you're at the
please,
moment.
go ahead.
Ms. Bowers.
Sure. Mr. Postweiler, you just mentioned that you were considering LEED certification. Of the 14 projects that you've done with Velocis, have you sought LEED certification for any of those?
Yes, I know at least a few of them have LEED certified.
And what level are they LEED certified?
I do not know. Some of those projects, just for clarification, that partnership speaks to KBC and Velocis nationally. So the projects in Texas are run by our Dallas development team. Projects in Phoenix, the Arizona are run by our Phoenix development team. Projects in the Midwest are run by the Chicago development team. So I know rough overviews about the projects, the partnership, the developed square footage, the investments, but no exact details like levels of LEED certification on those projects.
So do you know how that cost of LEED certification gets factored into your penciling of the project?
Yeah, I mean, what I know is some preliminary figures for this project. It was relatively expensive, so it's a cost that is placed on the developer. And to make that cost make sense, we need to be able to charge more rent for the facility. So the question to us would be, does the tenant value the LEED certification 5 cents a foot or 10 cents a foot, 20 cents a foot? What is that threshold, and are we comfortable making that gamble?
So that's a great point. So in those situations where you have pursued LEED certification, you've had a tenant in mind who has cared about that or not?
No, those projects are speculative in nature, just like this one.
What would make you make that jump?
If, for example, standing here today, the gross rents in this market were $12 a foot, and we got an 80% tax abatement, and we had an additional $1 a foot in rent that we could charge, we could then build a more expensive building. So if the market rents went way up and we got this abatement, then we would be in a position where we have additional dollars that we could capitalize effectively for the development, and we could add additional investment into the facility for things like LEED or different architectural features, et cetera.
Does that drive up the value of the building then?
In some cases, it does.
And so when the abatement expires, is that going to then just factor into a greater tax cost, tax burden to that ultimate property holder?
It's hard to speak to something 12 years out, but yeah, I would speculate. So if the assessor has a higher building value, when that abatement expires, it's going to be a bigger cost to the tenant.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Mr. Renner, did you have anything else?
I have no more questions at this time. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? I'll just say I appreciate the additional context and presentation this evening. Thank you again for joining us after your honeymoon. Again, congratulations. I particularly appreciate the addressing of the LLC drop and swap concerns. For folks who don't know, my day job is with the county auditor's office, and it is a frequent concern in terms of development projects and the engaged school districts that are, or the affected school districts. So to know that that is off the table is reassuring. Also appreciate the additional flavor about the project, for lack of a better word. That's important. I think it gives a broader picture of something that we can paint in our own head. So I do appreciate that. In regards to the income tax guarantee, I also appreciate the additional clarification that whoever is the subsequent owner, if there is one, will be on the hook for that. My understanding is that the city attorney has also on board with the language in the contract or the development agreement for that. So
Yes.
I appreciate that as well. Thank you, city attorney. All that being said, I know as currently written, there is the request for emergency. I appreciate the clarification that that is no longer needed. So next week, excuse me, not next week, on the 7th, Mr. Clerk, correct me if I'm wrong, the legislation would need to be amended to remove the request for emergency.
Correct.
All right, thank you. All that being said, I believe we are currently slated for the regular agenda on the 7th. Any objections? All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I know we have many members of our wonderful city staff here with us this evening. Appreciate all of your patience. So, now back to our regularly scheduled programming. We will resume with the presentations under item B. I have first a Department of Public Service update. Is that correct? All right. Good evening, Director. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us and making time for myself as well as some of my leadership team to come in and share some of the things that we've been working on this last half a year, I guess. With that being said, I'll just start right off. This is our org chart. We have 6 divisions falls within public service, as you can see them at the top. Some of those individuals that run these divisions I've brought in, so I'd like to introduce them to you so you kind of got a face with a name. Starting out over here, this is Kyle Allen. He is our street superintendent. Next to him is the water guru, Matt Jones. He's the utility superintendent. Our newest member to our leadership team is Adam Grove. He is the facility superintendent before we get ready to go into the new building. That'll be his main responsibility. Next to Adam is Jennifer for Hamilton, sorry. Went too fast. She's over programs and compliance and our project management. So she handles all the projects within public service. And last but not least here is Derek Casper, and he oversees our customer service department. One other superintendent that is one of the six, he's not with us this evening. He is in a working conference, and that's our fleet superintendent, Darren Arnett. So we'll start out with the customer service. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the bullet points, and then we'll go from there. So the customer service division here at the city, they create and send over 10,000 water bills a month. They also take over, as of starting of 2025, there are a little over 10,000 calls to date, and they manage all the shelters, facility rentals, and so forth. They also assist with all the Parks and Rec signups, shelter houses, and all the programming. And so they're pretty busy. This is that group here. Again, this is Derek's team, and they're responsible for all those items. We have the facilities division. At this time, it's still just one gentleman. So Adam takes care of all these facilities pretty much by himself or by contract, but majority of the work he does is he manages his time and does everything in-house. So he has the City Hall, the Police Department, the Service Garage, Fleet Garage, Senior Center, and the Creekside Garage. So he oversees all those from light bulbs, doors, whatever gets broke, vandalized, or whatever else comes up, he kind of oversees those. Some of the projects are listed there, from doing some different fleet garage doors, backflow certifications. He works with the fire department. It seems like a lot. They're always in here doing different inspections. He comes in early and meets with them. So he does a fantastic job. The service division maintains over 325 lane miles of street. Some of our stats from this winter, we started tracking. This winter alone, the staff plowed over 7,000 lane miles, put over 900 tons of salt, and over 6,000 gallons of brine. And we would have considered this probably a medium winter, mild winter. It wasn't real bad at times, but we're very proactive when it comes to the winter staffing. So we look at the forecast like everyone else. We try to pre-schedule as much as we can so we know we have the staff, and we're pretty aggressive. So we want to make sure everybody can get to school, work, and safe for the residents. Some of we maintain over 187 miles of water mains. We restarted the meter replacement upgrade program in 2025. To the date, we've replaced over 360 meters. Some of them are just dead meters. Some of this go old. The batteries go out. They come unhooked. So we've been really proactive in that, and the utilities group goes out and replaces those meters. We've also, to the date, have had over 14 water main breaks. So if you've ever seen some of those, the guys have done an excellent job, because they get called out at 2 o'clock in the morning to midnight. It doesn't depend. They come right in, and some of the worst ones, unfortunately, we do have is when the temperatures are below zero, and they're out there in the water, in the holes, and making sure the water gets turned back on. Some of the projects that the service division has kind of been working on this past year, a lot of these fall under Jennifer. The leak detection, the Stereo satellite, this is the first time we've ever used this company, so they're out of California. So they actually can find water underground by satellite. So what they do is, Mr. Renner may be aware of them, it's pretty fascinating, it really is. Their claim to fame is, I don't know if it's true or not, but they told me that their company is the one that found water on Mars. So that's their big selling point. Don't know if that's true or not, but it sounded good, so it perked our interest. But it has been a very successful project. We've had one pass so far. So the Matt's staff is out now finding these leaks that have been identified. They go out and they make sure that they're there. And a lot of them, some of them are on private property, some that are on city property. Either way, if it's on private property, we notify the residents of their water leak. We do have, water loss is a big thing for us, being a master meter community. We don't want any more water loss than we already have from fire hydrant flushing and, so forth. So then, once we get these these leaks fixed, they'll do another pass in the fall to determine if we've gotten those fixed, as well as if there's any more water leaks throughout the city. Also, I like the EPA reporting, the CCR, it was, I believe that was, let me find it real quick here. The Consumer Confidence Report, Jennifer does, most of you, if you live in Gahanna, you'll get you've gotten that report. Jennifer's the one that writes that report. She does an exceptional job. I can't speak highly enough. Actually, they went to an Ohio EPA conference, and the Ohio EPA was demonstrating on how to write the report, and they used Jennifer's from Gahanna's as a demonstration for the whole city. So it was a great honor for her, and she does an exceptional job at that, so I'd like to recognize her for that. Some other projects that we're doing, the street light painting projects. If you can see there, those were the poles that were painted last year. Then the 2019 poles will be this year. We're also looking to doing some traffic signal replacements. We've already done US 62 and Stagler Road. A lot of our traffic signal intersections are kind of outdated. So we're working through some of the problem areas on that. We know we have some timing issues out there. So we're also going to look to rebuild North Hamilton and Gatsby. It's planned for 2025. And then the remaining funds is that we're going to buy the detection cameras. Working with our contractor that provides that service for us, they really feel if we look at our detection cameras, that would resolve a lot of our timing issues later on. So we're hoping to be able to do some other timing with those.
May I ask before you
Yes.
move
I'm
on,
sorry.
Director?
Yes,
No,
sir.
thank you. Don't want to interrupt your flow. So, no pun intended. In regards to the water quality and the EPA reporting, and I'm sure engineering is also involved with this, but so in my ward, I have several HOAs. There's lots of water features that are often interconnected from one neighborhood to the next. And I've had communities reach out before. It's like, well, our pond floods, and we want to do something as an HOA to maybe reduce that flooding. But I've always heard the axiom or the phrase, "Don't mess with water" and the flow of water. And what happens upstream is definitely going to impact folks downstream. And so I guess the long story short is that part of your reporting? Who sort of coordinates that relationship with engineering? I'm sure the Army Corps gets involved on some of those as well, and just how that relates into the day job itself.
The 2.5 years I've been with the city, I have had no dialogue with anybody about flooding from ponds, per se. I would say probably engineering, maybe the Park Service would be the best way to go. I mean, I definitely could look into it for you and get back with you.
I'm happy to reach out to them as well, so thank you very much. Yeah.
So some of the, just another slide. So we really started looking at our operations the last couple of years on things that we want to do in-house versus things that we had been contracting out, per se. So with that being said is, if you haven't seen, we have a new street sweeper. It's been out, and they're trying to hit some of the more high visible roads as of now. They were down obviously for Jazz Fest, and you make sure that the main drags are ready for the 4th of July and so forth. But come July 1st, we will actually start more of what I would consider a live program for the street sweeping. So we broke the city into 5 different zones, and they're based on, we try to get as equal miles as we can for each zone. This will be something that the residents hopefully will be able to track on the internet. So they can log on, highlight over where they live, and then that zone will tell them what dates that we're hopefully planning on sweeping through there. So It's been a huge success so far, so the staff right now is getting, familiar with the machine and what it can do and what it can't do. So if you look around certain areas, you can really tell a difference. And we've gotten a huge amount of compliments already from residents appreciating that service.
Director, I believe Mr. Snetzer has a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that information. Can you confirm as to whether or not that those vehicles are the sweeper, I guess, what is that you would call it, truck?
Yeah, street sweeper.
Is
Yes,
that
sir.
purchased with issue $12? Or made possible by issue $12?
I believe so.
Okay.
So this one would have a mix of funding. It would be heavy on stormwater because keeping things out of the stormwater system, but there would be some that would be capital fund.
All right. Thank you so much.
We've also started looking at our pavement markings. As you've noticed, there's been some pavement marking redone recently by contract. That's coming from the engineering department. That's called thermoplastic. That's actually heated. What we're doing in-house is more of what I would refer to as touch-up. So we're looking into doing residential areas, school zones, around park entrance, the pools, things that are got high pedestrian walkways, and it just kind of touches them up. So they spray paint, they throw the glass beads on it, and then we go like. So the majority of the areas that we're touching up are crosswalks and stop bars. But in previous years, this service would have been contracted out, and now we're going to do it in-house. We've also started our first sign shop. Before, we had always bought our signs from a contractor, so there was a time lapse there. If a stop sign would go down, we had to order the sign, wait for the sign to come in, and then obviously re-instruct the sign. Now we have a sign shop inside the service garage where we've had 2 or 3 of our service guys that went through the training, and now we make all of our signs in-house. And when I say all of our signs, that means any signs for parks and rec or anything. So it's been going, as at this point, they've made 40 different signs since 2025. That's pretty good because it's brand new. So, and it does take a little bit of a talent to figure out how to run it right. And then I just put some concrete work. We normally always contract our concrete work out. We wait till we get 4 or 5 different spots. We call the contractor. He comes in and, a couple of days he knocks them out. We're really working on trying to provide a higher level service to the residents, so now they don't have to wait. Now, when I say small jobs, I mean like one slab or some curb repair. We don't do a whole stretch of sidewalk. It's just things that we have tore up to replace a maintenance project. The fleet division, so they service over 450 pieces of equipment. So they go from the weed eater all the way to a dump truck, a loader. Those 4 techs will keep the maintenance up and everything on that division. Some of the vehicles that were purchased in 2024, as they're listed there, I'm not going to read through them. If you have any questions about them, though, I'll be glad to answer. So we really, with Corey and myself and Darren Arnett, which is not with us this evening, we really focused on right-sizing the fleet here the last couple years and more emphasis on need versus want. And so that's become a big focal point for us to let's try to get what we need. I mean, we all want, the Cadillac, but we know that's not always the right thing to do. So it's been a really good program. Corey's leadership has been outstanding with it, with Darren, and we've gotten the right pieces of equipment. The reason why I wanted to put the one picture up to the right, that's called a crash attenuator. It's for safety. If you've ever been on the interstate, I'm sure you've seen them on work zones. We didn't have anything like this here. So our crews were kind of just standing out in the middle of Hamilton with not much safety behind them. Now, anytime we're on a high travel road, Kyle's guys will take this crash attenuator out with them for safety while they're doing pothole patching or whatever it may be on the high speed or more higher traveled roads. So that's a solar panel there if you're kind of looking, and then that air board flips up. It's down right there, but kind of you might have seen it out on the road. It's actually called a Scorpion. Here's some of the 2025 vehicles that have been purchased. The street sweeper, obviously, you can see on there. We have 2 salt dump trucks that are being replaced. They're like 19 years, we've had them for like 19 years. They're old. So we're trying to replace things that are a need and so forth. The golf carts are on there. I think this year they're about, I want to say they're like $5,000 a piece, so we're only doing 10. So the goal was within the next 5 years to do 10 each year, the 10, and then within 5 years, the golf carts will be replaced. Some sustainability projects that we've we work on every year. So we had the shred and the recycling event here at the City Hall. It was the largest attended shred event we've had. So we had over 830 cars that went through. You can kind of see some of the stats from paper to electronics. I was amazed on how many people brought in TVs and old VCRs and stuff. So, and then we have household hazardous waste disposal is actually this coming Saturday. This will be our second time that we've done this. We started it last year. So that is actually run with it's a partnership with SWACO, and it's a county-wide event. And then they have a contractor, it's called EEI, that comes out of Columbus and does all the collection. So it's a real good partnership. We have the EV chargers, and then as we have been since 2024, when we have a street light that goes out, we replace it with an LED. So we had 138 in 2024 and 85 so far in 25. Jen's group has also been doing some research on solar street lights. There is some municipalities that are going to these. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that much about them yet. Obviously, they probably work better in California than they do in Ohio because we have so many Gotham gray days. But we are looking into maybe doing some solar stuff. And then the picture on the end is just a couple events that we hold each for the last 2 years. The picture on the left is our snow and ice equipment inspection. So usually around mid-October into November, we dress every piece of snow and ice equipment in the city, and it goes through a complete inspection. That way, if we have any issues mechanically, we get them caught now instead of having in the middle of a storm and a truck going down. And then the picture on the right is our first year. Last year, we had a truck rodeo, and where the guys that have CDLs come out and they compete through an obstacle course, and we present them with a trophy. Any questions?
I will thank you, Director, very much. I'll open it up to the dais for any questions or comments. Mr. Schnetzer.
I almost feel obligated. Thank you to the I guess the weather warriors, the snow plowing crew. It is it's kind of one of the things I guess Gahanna is known for. You know, at least on my commute to work, I can usually tell where the city limit stops and where another jurisdiction. Yeah, and where another jurisdiction that shall be nameless starts. So anyway, thank you to everyone that puts in so many hours in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schnetzer. I did, since you mentioned the stop bars, I did have 2 quick items. One, I believe it's been put into the Gahanna 311 system. Concerns around Crossing Creek South and the location of that stop bar in relation to where some of the shrubbery obscures the view of cross traffic. I know I've spoken with Mr. Schultz, so I just wanted to make sure I highlighted that item again. Good evening, sir.
Today, so that's actually a Parks and Rec
Not so
item at this
lucky.
particular point.
Okay.
Because of the trimming of the trees, so on and so forth. I know that these guys have been out on a few occasions. And yeah, I do believe that Parks has determined with engineering and also service that the clear zone is met by quite a few number of feet. So I don't know if any additional work is warranted up there.
Thank you. I appreciate the update. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and I'm sure the mayor, who also lives up Clark State, would agree that the roundabout at Clark State and Hamilton, as you are traveling south on Hamilton and enter the roundabout, the location of that stop bar, for those of us who live up Clark State, people don't stop and or don't yield, I should say, at that stop bar. And I've had several requests for if we could move that stop bar, I guess, further north away from the roundabout because of its proximity to the actual circular part of the roundabout. And I'm sure that is an engineering, public safety.
It is. I was going to say director and versa.
Yes.
So that is an engineering,
Yeah.
it is an engineering question, and following, I know you and I have had conversations
Yeah.
about that, and I believe they are looking into what, if anything, can be done with that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Seeing nothing further on this one, thank you very much. Appreciate the update, and thank you for your team for being here and for all that you do every day. So thank you. Next up, we have a Department of Planning update. Good evening, Director Blackford.
Good evening, Council. Michael Blackford here tonight to present to you a little halfway midpoint of what the Department of Planning has been up to. On your screen right now, this is our org chart. We are comprised of 3 different divisions. We have the Building Division, the Code Enforcement Division, and the Zoning Division. We'll get into those 3 divisions here shortly. 11 total people, 10 full-time, 1 part-time person. Altogether in our department, we have over 115 years of Gahanna-related experience. I myself, I have 11 and a half years, and I think that puts me 5th in the department of 11. So not falling behind, not showing off. So, getting into the building division, I'm actually going to start at the bottom of the screen here on accomplishments. First one there listed is permitting software implementation. It's been about 1 year since the city switched permitting software. It's been about 1 year, I should say, for the building division, 6 months in 2024, 6 months in 2025. That's big for any department. That's big for any division in any department. That affects the building division more than any other division within the city, because essentially 100% of what they do, permits, inspections, those reports, it's all going through the permitting software. So their switching of software takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit more detailed and nuanced than most other folks. On your screen right there, the permits and inspections looking at 2024 and 2025. Why I wanted to cover the accomplishments first with implementing software is the difference in the number of inspections, number of permits is because of difference in the software and how the software, the new software and the old software calculates and looks at things. So there is not a drop off of whatever percent that would be, a large percent from 1,300 to 257. It's largely the same amount of permits as every previous year in the number of inspections. With switching to a new software, that's a new kind of interaction and touch points that the building division has with our external customers. So our applicants, the permits that are being filed, the number one question that we historically received was, what's the status of my permit? Even when the city had a somewhat sophisticated online permitting software that we had from about 2015 until about 2024, that did not allow for the external customer to get from their comfort of their home, get online, and check the status of their application, of their permit. The new software does allow for that. So our number one question that we used to receive, what status of my permit? That has almost completely gone away. However, we still do have a lot of touch points with our external customers related to the new software. Our number one question, kind of feedback we're getting, is really scheduling of inspections. What are the timing of those inspections? And how do we resubmit our plans online? So those are elements of the permitting software that our external customers, we have to educate and get them more acquainted with that, and we're working on that. In-house inspections, that was part of our accomplishments. That also ties into the frequently asked question about scheduling and timing of inspections. The way that it works here in Gahanna almost 37,000 people. You call up Monday by 3 in the afternoon, and then we're out there Tuesday, the next day, as long as you call us by 3 o'clock. And a large part of that is we're able to do that consistently because of the software. Again, it's the fewest amount of touch points. It's about having things being as quick and efficient as possible. Last year, City Council, you authorized the hiring of an in-house inspector. He's pictured in that picture there in red on your screen. Having that in-house inspector along with our third-party contractors allows us to be as responsive as a community as there is in the region. Code enforcement. This is the cases for 2024, 2025. They're largely on the same trajectory, about the same amount of cases year in, year past. Normally, I would provide information on inspections, but I can't do that within the new software. Years past, we average about 3 to 4 inspections per case. So you can, we've done about 2,000 inspections so far this year. A lot of the same, a lot of with code enforcement. It's probably good that it's frequent flyers. It's not some new kind of issue that we're seeing, especially this time of year. Our frequent touch points with the community is going to be on tall grass and weeds, trash and debris, things of that nature. We also get a lot of calls that are really intended for the non-emergency police line, blocking of sidewalks, cars parked on the street longer than people like, and complaints due to noise. Normally what we do is when we tell folks that's the police, they say, yeah, we don't want to bother them, so you handle it, but we can't. We can't handle those. Our accomplishment for late last year, early this year, proud of this one, warrants for scofflaws. This has been a big undertaking. It took a long time to get here, and we wouldn't have accomplished this without the hard work of our code enforcement department and our friends in the legal office and in the clerk of courts. They worked with us. So essentially now what the city has is another tool in its tool belt to get compliance for code enforcement related violations, because code enforcement officer can't make anyone do anything. All they can do is cite someone, then they go through the legal process. A lot of folks, they won't, Mayor's Court apparently isn't high on their priority list, so a lot of times they don't show up or they don't pay the fines, and the process continues, and it's a vicious cycle that can go year after year after year after year. Now with the warrant process, we've had a few folks find out that they can't always just ignore the city any longer. We've had a few folks who after, the one example I have, I won't give the address or anything, I think it was well over 5 years, staff tried to make contact with the actual individual, wasn't able to ever get them at their house or on the phone or anything like that. They went to renew their driver's license and found out that they couldn't do that. And they complied for the first time, and I think it was really like 7 years we've been working on a case. So this has been in effect here for a little bit, and we're seeing it used to some very pleasant results, I would say.
Director, I think there's a question from Ms. Bowers.
Please.
On code enforcement, is your department able to enforce code with regard to commercially owned properties?
So we can. The vast majority of our complaints are residential, but certainly we do have code for commercial. I would say our main touch points with commercial folks are going to be, especially after the winter season. This year there was a lot of patching of potholes and things of that nature. So code enforcement would be the group that would tell somebody, a shopping center there that they have to make improvements. Another touch point we have frequently with commercial folks tends to be on signage, temporary signage, and dumpsters and trash related to trash placement or dumpsters not being well kept, things of that nature.
Are there any obstacles to code enforcement related to commercial properties?
That's a great question. I would say that I haven't, anecdotally, I can't recall anything in our conversations that would say there's an inherently easier or more difficult with commercial properties. I will say that I think with a lot of things, as I'm thinking about our conversations, it comes down to the individual owner, and some of them are more responsive than others, or a little easier to work with.
All right, thank you.
I think Ms. Jones also had a question.
Yeah, so also with code violation, so kind of two-part question. Of course, see this on social media, and so, we'll take that with a grain of salt. But there, I guess, is sort of this thing like, oh, the city just drives around looking for violations. Pretty sure that doesn't happen, but just curious, like, is the bulk of the violations, people calling? Is there a little bit of surveying happening?
That's a fantastic question. So you're going to get, some communities handle code enforcement different than other communities. We are proactive and reactive. Oh, boy, and I was thinking about this back there in case this question came up, and I can't remember, but I believe it's 2/3 of our complaints are, I want to say, I can't remember if they're proactive or reactive. Okay. But it's 2/3. It's right around the 2/3 mark. And I want to say it's proactive.
Okay. And so then you mentioned, the consistency in trying to reach out to someone, then we go to that warrant situation. Is there a general, we try 3 times and then we move to this, or is it case by case?
I believe it's case by case, and I think it's only been implemented just a couple of times. And that's a great question, and it involves more than just the code enforcement department. But I think generally speaking, what code enforcement's trying to do is not, it's not fines and making money, it's to gain compliance in that. So I think first and foremost, what's always in code enforcement's mind is gaining compliance with whatever that rule and regulation. So sometimes some folks respond more favorably to one tactic than another. So we try to always work towards gaining compliance, whatever that achieves that goal.
Thank you.
All right, planning and zoning. This is apples to apples on your screen here. 2024, we had 210,000 square feet. Planning Commission just 2 weeks ago, we had quite a bit of 3 different developments approved. For our total for the year, 209,000, so almost same as last year. Last year we had 196 residential units approved, none this year. Frequently asked question, by far and away more than any other question we receive. Won't name the project, but to give you an example, so the number one question is, when is my hearing date? We had a project that went through the process, I think it was in maybe for 6 to 8 months. We were able to track and count over 3 dozen confirmed times we were asked this question, when is my hearing date? We give the same answer every single time, and that's, the Department of Planning doesn't even give the hearing dates. What we do is we describe how the application process works. We have flow charts that show that as well, and we still get asked, when is our hearing date? So I think why I'm bringing that up is I think that shows a little bit of the focus of our external customers sometimes. It's more on the reward than the journey that needs to occur to get to that place. That really there are no I put what are my setbacks, that's question, just over the phone the zoning counter gets quite a bit, but it's not at the level of 3 dozen times per application. That was an outlier, but it is by far and away, for every time I get asked a question about landscaping or parking calcs, I probably get asked 10 times about when is my hearing date. Accomplishments, really the same accomplishments as the other departments. Again, implementing software is a long-term deal to successfully implement that. And with a brand new zoning code, obviously that's a big deal. We're still working on refining that, and we hope to have probably some code changes to you later this year. Department priorities, just 2 more slides here. So this big brick of butter looking thing in the middle that says process, that's the city. And we just talked about permits and permit volume. So what that allows us to do as staff is to evaluate our process for inefficiencies. So the number one thing our department's always doing is looking at continuously improving the process. But we're just a portion of that. So the inputs there in green, that's the external customer. The blue, the output. In my world, the output for me is going to be Planning Commission more times than not, because that's the end goal, is to get the external customer to the finish line as quick as possible. For my world, I don't get to make a decision, it's Planning Commission. So we're always working on that process to streamline it, to make it as efficient as possible, to make sure we're capturing what the city and the community has deemed relevant. So process, we just talked about two major things. It might be once or twice in a career to go through and implement permitting software and to rewrite a zoning code. Those are major things that the department has done to help streamline process. Some of the things in the zoning code are minor. It's changing vernacular around. We try to be responsive. If we get a lot of questions about a permit or an application, they struggle with an area, we look to change the verbiage of that application, of our process, of our code. Some of it's large scale. It's, again, you have a new zoning code, you're redoing process. We're being responsive to the community. We have administrative processes where before the community said we need to see when you change a commercial parking lot. We want to know what those changes are. Over the years, that's no longer becoming a value add by taking that through a public hearing. So we've made changes to minimize some of those interactions. With that said, process, outputs, if process, no matter what the city does to our process, no matter how much streamlining we do, the main component to that output is always going to be what the external customer does. So in general, if an application, on average, about 1 day out of 5 is it in the city's hands. So it's about in our hands 85% of the time. So if an application takes 6 months, it's about 5 months it's in the external customer's hand, 1 month it's in the city's hand. So why do we have 20,000 square foot warehouses where they can get through the planning commission process and get to that output stage in 2 months, and why does it take 2 years for another project? More times than not, it's that external customer and the level of professionalism that they are putting into their application. And we certainly do have applications every month where some of them take 2 months, some of them take 2 years. But the main reason why, if it was our process, everything would take 2 years or longer. But that's not the case. But we're still always evaluating our process, trying to make it better. 2025 priorities, a couple of things that could potentially affect budget when we're here in a few months. That would be land use plan. We're evaluating, does the land use plan need to be revised? If so, that would be part of our budget request. I know in the executive session, we talked about a project that had floodplain implications as the city gets more sophisticated with floodplain, floodway, those rules and regulations. That's primarily dictated by the federal government. When we have complicated projects, there's a lot of floodway in the city. That's a lot of third-party consultant dollars because those expertise is very hard to find. So again, that might be part of our budget request for 2026. And like I said, we're always looking at updating our zoning code to be responsive and be reflective of the community, make sure it's as streamlined as possible, and process as well. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much, Director. Any questions or discussion from my colleagues?
I've got a question.
Yes, Ms. Bowers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the update, and thank you also for previewing what we might expect for 2026 priorities as well. We did have some interesting discussions around zoning code changes last year, and there's been a lot of discussion around housing trends, of course, in the region.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious if we have seen much in the way of ADU requests come through.
Yeah, great question. Appreciate it. There was a lot of discussion, as you recall, around the adoption of the code and the effects of ADUs, and we had some external customers who seemed fairly intrigued by that, so we were probably anticipating maybe one or two, but I would say that I haven't had any calls. I don't recall staff having any calls about ADUs, and we actually haven't seen an accessory dwelling unit application as of yet.
Is there a large garage structure going in to the west side of Cherry Bottom? I know, I'm sorry, it's just a specific project, and I happened to see it, and it just looked like it was potentially an ADU in the Founder's Ridge area. I'm sorry, to the west of that. I don't remember the name of that neighborhood.
Certainly don't. I'm trying to think. I probably wouldn't be aware of it unless it needed a variance, because we haven't had any conditional uses, and we just had a variance or two for a larger kind of garage. But I think the code allows for around 1,000 square feet for a garage. I think it's the same size as the
Okay.
ADU.
Okay.
So there could be a large garage that would be allowed by code.
Interesting. Okay, great,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
I was curious if it was like a two-story with a granny suite over top. It's a significant structure.
Take a look just to make sure.
I didn't mean to narc on anybody, I promise.
No.
I'm just
no.
curious.
It's just for research purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions or discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Director. Appreciate you and your team.
Thank you all very much.
All right, by my calculations, we are last but certainly not least, we have a 2025 community grant update. And for this, I believe I'm turning to Senior Deputy Director Weibensinger.
All right, good evening. Let me make sure I'm all set up here. All right, so sent ahead of time as part of the agenda tonight is the summary of the programs. It should be a spreadsheet that provides you the details with the applications, requested amount, a general description or overview as described by the applicant, and then ultimately the recommendation that was made by the Grant Review Committee. So what I wanted to do today is just, as we're kind of year 3 of the program, as we know it's kind of been redesigned this year as opposed to 23, 24. What I wanted to do was walk through just where we are to date with the program so you know what's happening. On March 27th, we issued a notice of funding opportunity in advance. We have over 24 nonprofits that have been engaged in our process over the last few years. We made sure, just to put it on the radar, that the grant application was going to be released on April 1st. April 1st, using our OpenGov software, we did open the online portal. We do take applications by electronic means, either email or paper, but all of them were submitted through that portal this year. We also advertise as of April 1st through the website, social media, and in the newsletter as well. April 7th, we did issue reminders out to all nonprofits that we had their email address for, just reminding them that it was an open funding source. Again, trying to make sure it's on everybody's radar. April 25th was our submission deadline, and we did receive 16 applications. The Grant Review Committee, if you'll recall, expanded from 3 members to 5 this year. So 2 members were appointed by council, 2 members appointed by the mayor, and then 1 city staff. The city staff member this year was Director of Economic Development, Jeff Gotke, having a new, fresh perspective of the community. It was great to have his insight into digging into the applications. Kudos to all members of the committee. They did a fantastic job of taking this work serious, digging through all the applications and really making sure that what the recommendations were met, what they felt was in the best interest of the program based on the priorities that we established. Put on here just a reminder of the priorities for the program. We did expand it a little bit and added that second tier. But really focusing on basic human necessities like food and clothing and stability, mental health services, general health, safety, welfare, and then overall, best interest of the community to fund. So Grant Committee put in a lot of work on this. May 2nd, we were able to release all of the applications to the committee members, so they had about 5 days while at home that they could dig through the applications to be prepared for when they came on site. Again, trying to make best use of their time and maximize our impact of those meetings. On May 7th, we all met in person. Again, not a voting member, but facilitating the team through the process. They did request clarifying questions in in-person interviews with 2 of the 16 applicants to make sure they fully understood what the request of the program or project was. So they did have a follow-up on May 16th and May 27th. So they put in quite a bit of time on this for us. Overall, 13 applications were recommended for funding, totaling $81,250. That was a $100,000 budget we had for this. It did come in, the recommendations did come in under what the budget was. Total was around a little over $119,000 in asks. So 6 were recommended for full funding, 7 were recommended for some variation or partial funding, and 3 were recommended for non-award. And again, reasons for that, we're going through the applications and determining what was eligible cost, what wasn't eligible cost, what would be supported through the program, what fell within the priorities and the scope of what we were trying to do. So June 10th through the 16th, city staff met with all 13 applicants for what we call a pre-award conference. This was really to make sure we're all on the same page of the expectations of the funding, right? We have signed grant agreements that we want through with every or all 13 of them. We went through the programs or the project that were being proposed, and we discussed what were eligible costs and non-eligible costs to make sure there was clarification on that. We talked about the reporting benchmarks that we have established. They're required benchmarks. September 8th, we are to receive an update. October 20th is an update. And then we talked about what we would like in a final report. It's going to be different depending on the projects we funded, but overall, what do we need to know to make sure that the program was successful? And really, we're honing in on that return on investment for the program as well. We went through the request for reimbursement process. Remember, this is transitioned to a reimbursement base. So what we want to make sure is they understand the process, because often some of the smaller nonprofits floating the money for an extended period of time could be a hindrance. So we want to make sure once they have an approved request for reimbursement, they understand how quickly we can turn around those funds back to them. And we talked about that the program expiration date is December 31st, unless they request prior approval ahead of time. What we would like to do is have all the programs wrapped up and everything done in this budget year, so next budget year is a clean slate. Doesn't always work out that way. For some of the programs, there's outside influences, timings on things, but what we want to make sure we're building is a communication approach for this year's program to make sure we really know what is going on and where we are in all these projects. We also went over any other clarifying questions. Again, the goal of the meeting was to make sure that they fully understood what was expected, and if they had any hesitations or reservations about the expectations we had on them, that was the time to work through those. So as of right now, we do have what I would consider a fully go-live project or in program initiation strategy right now. I will leave it out with some questions as you. I know there's probably some questions for council.
All right, thank you very much, sir. At this time, I'll open it up to my colleagues for any questions or discussion. Mr. Renner, saw your hand first.
No, just a comment. Mr. Weisenberg, thank you so much for this. As you recall, we had some consternation in the fall about this process, and I really do believe that you have a firm grasp on this, and you've safeguarded the city's money, and you did more than that. You actually applied it exactly what we wanted to do. So my hat's off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renner. I saw Ms. Jones.
I ditto the appreciation, so thank you for that. Do have a couple of questions. So it looks like you distributed 81, something like that, and I think we set aside 100, so there's like 20-ish left.
Yep.
So can you give a little more context to the organizations that didn't receive any funding, a little bit more around the why, especially knowing there's kind of money left on the table, and then what will happen with that money left on the table, I
Yeah,
guess.
so, last question first. So anything not part of this goes back to general fund revenue, right? The committee took it as an approach as well, is it's not just because the budget was 100,000 is we don't just fund 100,000. It was digging through the applications and finding value in the programs itself. That's why you'll see, over half received some type of partial funding because just because the ask might be this, what the committee wasn't ultimately on board with funding potentially all of that, right? Again, with the 3 that were recommended for non-award, they each have various reasons for. Some are outside of what they considered scope of the entity that was applying for that program. Others were not meeting eligibility requirements. We did have mandation into what we call the Gahanna community, which would benefiting 51% more of the Gahanna community, which is City of Gahanna or Gahanna Jefferson Public School area. And then there was another project that it just didn't fit within the 3 priorities and the committee wasn't comfortable funding at all.
Got it.
Yep.
So for those organizations, I guess, do you share the reasons of maybe why they didn't get funding or maybe what we would want to see from them in the future should they apply again?
Yeah, so the 3 get the same notice of non-award, which then, in there is a caveat if they would like to learn more about the application or to speak with me on how to make the application better in the future, it is in that notice of non-award for all 3.
Okay. I think that is all I have for right now.
Thank you, Ms.
Thanks.
Jones.
I'll just very briefly, I'll just echo some other comments from my colleagues that I think that you have done a really good job, Mr. Weibensinger, at responding to some of the concerns while maintaining the integrity and intent of the program. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deputy Director, thank you very much. I'll share the plaudits from my colleagues. Appreciate all your efforts into this, as well as that of the committee. It sounds like everybody took the role seriously and put a lot of time and energy into it, so grateful to all of them as well. So my understanding is that from what your earlier comments, that the spreadsheet we have received, the one field is directly provided by the applicant as a summary of the request, but there is likely more information included on the applications themselves, and that we were not provided with the applications themselves.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we able to? Are we able to see the full applications?
Yeah.
Public record.
It's all public record,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a lot of paperwork, so, yeah.
Sure.
What I try to do, provide you a summary, and if there's anything particular that you want to dive deeper in, we can. It just depends on what direction you want to take.
I appreciate I think Ms. Bowers, in her question, and Ms. Jones as well, I appreciate the transparency and the communication aspect that you and the committee members put forward in terms of following up with the applicants, issuance of the non-award letter, how that application can be improved in the future. So I appreciate that very much so.
And I'll just reiterate, we want the program to be successful for all applicants as well. So anybody that needs to contact us, on the letters itself, it has my information. They can always contact with me to where we can work with them to create better applications. We do work with a lot of small nonprofits, and oftentimes they're figuring out as they are going along. But again, we want to create opportunities for the program to be successful.
I guess one very quick question in terms of how this operates, as it is a reimbursement model. Say an organization was approved for $10,000, they go out and seek to purchase or procure, I'll say, and it comes in at $9,500 because prices change, whatever. They would then submit a receipt and they would receive the $9,500, assuming all else is being equal.
And I can give you the active example. We've had one nonprofit that has already submit their request for reimbursement for their project, which is Gahanna Residents in Need. They were awarded up to $10,000 for their project. They have already completed acquisition of everything they needed, which then comes out to $7,966 roughly. So that in itself, I could tell you there will be $2,000 more going back to the general fund revenue. So instead of looking at 81,000, you're really looking around 79,000 now. It's a reimbursement basis, so I would expect others to not hit their full not to exceed amounts, and it to continue to kind of tick down a little bit more.
I appreciate that. All right, anything else for Deputy Director Weibenzinger? All right, thank you very much, sir. Anything else for the committee? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and adjourn this evening. Thank you, everyone.